Is there some line between like being this political public figure and private human being? Like we still remember the backlash that the Finnish Prime Minister Sanna Marin got after the video in which we can see her dancing and partying and having fun leaked. It was massive. So is there some line like you have that you wouldn't cross?
Yeah, so I think it's a good question. I think it's a challenge for everyone who has a sort of public profile these days. So in this job, I definitely do. And part of that is understanding that, most of the time I'll need to be very careful about my public appearance or consider the fact that I am the British ambassador here. I do have a private life. I'm here with a family, with my kids. I don't bring them into what I'm doing in the public life because I don't think that's fair on them. My wife and I, we do things publicly sometimes, and that's a conversation and agreement that we have. I think sometimes it's an unfair standard that's applied, and I think the example you mentioned is a good one of that. And frankly, it's often an unfair standard that's applied more to women in public life than to men. But the reality is, I'm here to do a job that requires a public profile. And I've signed up for that.
Is it a topic for you, like the differences between female ambassadors and male ambassadors, or that you've just mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's part of my responsibility. We do our job best when we give everyone an equal opportunity. And in the last few years, I've been very pleased to see in my own ministry an increase in the number of women in senior jobs, so ambassadors. We've had our first ambassador in Berlin, in Paris, in Washington, so the first women in those jobs, and that's an important statement because the UK, our job is to represent the whole of the UK, and so if I can help support that, be an ally in some way, then I want to do that, and I will.
As a fellow runner, where do you like to run in Prague? Are you morning or evening runner?
I'm definitely a morning one, so it's up early, and the recommendations that I've got from people, again, this is a good example of what you get from social media sometimes, is that people have been giving me ideas, suggestions. So Letna is our kind of local space, which is great. Stromovka is fantastic as well. And then I'm just beginning to explore the city. Petržin is a little bit steep for me, but it's hard work. But it's a way of exploring the city as well.
So far, you have said very nice things about Czech people and Czech culture and Prague. You've mentioned it in this interview again. But is there something that bothers you, that you don't like about being here? It's been 2 months, so to be fair, it's not such a long time. But still, people say often, like people from other countries, that we don't smile that much, that we are easily like triggered, I don't know, in cars and stuff. So have you noticed something like this?
Yeah, so I'm definitely still in the honeymoon period. So at the moment, I'm still finding everything exciting and new and enjoyable, and maybe it's the same both ways. So people are still finding me interesting and new as well. I think it's interesting, the cliches or the stereotypes sometimes that we have about ourselves are not what other people see. So my experience has been a really warm welcome. So people have been very kind of open, they've been smiling, they've been expressing themselves in warm ways, and that's been my experience so far. So we'll see. I mean, I still have to explore a lot more of the country. I know that the Czech Republic is not just Prague, and so I've started to travel around a bit more and see more people, but if anything, the welcome has been just as warm.
We will talk in 1 year again, okay?
Yes, definitely.
In the now very famous and widely spread video, you claim that you believe that our countries have many things in common. But do they really? What would you name as the biggest difference?
So I think, again, during this period, I'm mostly seeing the things that we have in common. So the history, the things that we've done together, World War II onwards especially, the last year in which we've both shown the same kind of support for Ukraine and the people that have come here. So I think, again, I'm still feeling many more of those similarities. I mean, we do have a few differences. I think, the Brits, sometimes we can be a little bit indirect about what we're saying, and so it's interesting working in an embassy which is we have some British diplomats, but it's mostly Czech staff. So most of the team that I'm working with are Czechs, and sometimes there's a little miscommunication amongst ourselves, but
like they're more honest than you?
Well, I think the Brits don't always express themselves clearly enough. We say quite good when we mean bad, or things like that, or sometimes it's the other way. We say it's fine when we mean it's great. So there's little cultural differences sometimes, but by and large I found much more in common than different.